Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com with this week's episode of the Market Monday. We are going to go back to an oldie but a goodie, a topic that I love to cover about once per year. About this time of year, the dead summer months or right before rotation occurs, is the perfect time to invest in cards like the ones I'm going to be talking about. These are Commander. Commander is often forgotten about at this time. It starts to pick back up once the Commander sets are released. I believe they release them now in August. So this is the perfect time to start looking at cards that have a long-term ability to grow because of the Commander format. So I've talked about this before, how the MTG Finance seems to be very, very focused on Modern. It used to be Legacy before Modern. I've been around the block, so to speak, for a while in Magic the Gathering, and I remember when Modern didn't exist, people were obsessed with Legacy. So if it didn't see Legacy play and rotation was coming up, you'd just dump everything at that point that did not see Legacy play. People still have that kind of mindset with standard cards, that if it doesn't see Modern play, then get rid of it. However, we do have this format that, in my opinion, is the strongest and most vibrant format, called Commander. And this is a particular card you see in front of you, the Cyclonic Rift, that I spec'd on during Modern Masters 2017. I think that it went down to, let's check Goldfish real quick. It went down to the low of the $3.69, and I remember I was able to get a bunch of these on Cardsphere for about $2 a piece. Speaking of Cardsphere, I do want to do an entire update video to Cardsphere because there's some things that I think we need to talk about with the Cardsphere platform. Still loving it, and if you're not signed up for Cardsphere, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do so, as I think that my Market Mondays and my Rogue Markets, all of my financial advice is more geared towards people that trade rather than buy and sell on eBay. I don't think that if you don't have access to like a local game store, or if you're really not savvy with groups, that using eBay and TCG players is just a lose-lose situation. You'll get killed by fees. It doesn't even make sense for us as a store to be using those platforms. And so the way that you can, though, really benefit from MTG Finance is through trades, or just savvily, is that a word? Managing your collection. So anyway, Cardsphere is the best way to do so. They have very, very low fees for trading, and I've had almost positive all through using the platform, only positive experience. There have been some bad apples from time to time, but those seem to be corrected quite quickly. So anyway, there's my little plug for Cardsphere. Go check it out. I'll put links in the description or whatnot, or just go back, check some of my videos out for my reviews on Cardsphere. Anyway, so Cyclonic Rift was a card that I was picking up for about $2. It's not hard to get not in demand cards for 50% on Cardsphere. So it also, Cardsphere seemed to be a little bit lagging on price increases. So like if it's saying it's $10 on Goldfish, a lot of times it hasn't caught up on Cardsphere, and it will be like, I don't know exactly where they get their source from, but it tends to be very, very low to begin with. So these are the types of cards I really like to go long-term speculate on, because there's not a lot of volatility in them. It's demand that is going to be sustained. You don't have to worry about something getting banned or something being a flavor of the week. The only time in Commander you really have to worry about is when something better gets printed and they just replace that slot. But what usually happens in Commander, if something better gets reprinted, so if, for example, there's a better card that does Cyclonic Rift's job, usually the blue decks would have both of them in the deck, it wouldn't just cut it out of its slot like you see in Modern. So that's going to be the focal point of this particular series, is we're going to focus on rotating sets. So the sets that we'll be rotating pretty soon here are Kaladesh, Aether Revolt, Hour of Devastation, and Amonkhet. And we're going to try to identify these Cyclonic Rift type cards, these cards that seem to be staples in the Commander format. And what I love about Commander too is even invested players, when a new Commander set comes out, they still go and buy cards that go in their deck. Commander players tend not to like to re-sleeve cards. So what I mean by that is they have 5 different decks, and they have a copy of Cyclonic Rift in all 5 of them. They aren't the type of person that just goes from 1 to 1 to 1. So we tend to see that around our store, that people will buy the exact same cards over and over and over again. And people, even play groups, kind of get in these little I don't know if we want to call them like feedback loops or monkey see, monkey do. If they see a card that sees play or they get beat by a card, they also buy the card and then start putting them in a lot of decks. So Cyclonic Rift is a perfect card for blue decks. It goes in just a vast amount of decks. If you come over here to EDH Rec, it shows that it is played in 64,000 decks. Now, these numbers are not created equal if you go by EDH Rec. And by the way, this video is going to have a lot to do with EDH Rec because I think EDH Rec is just a goldmine for information based upon the trends in the Commander format. So if you really want to see how a card like pairs up against another card, like how much it sees play, you have to go by the set. So if we go over to Return to Ravnica, Cyclonic Rift is the most played set, with Chromatic Lantern being a close second, or played card in the set, and therefore we have a baseline of how popular the card is. So you can't like compare Supreme Verdict, which has 17,000 decks it's played in, with something like Hour of Revelation, and say, oh, Supreme Verdict's just so much better because, you know, it's seen 17 versus 1,000 or whatever Hour of Revelation is. However, Hour of Revelation has been out in a fraction of the time that Supreme Verdict, so there's not a lot of decks that it just has ticked to hit this count. So keep that in mind as we talk about this. So again, EDH Rec is awesome. You can go over here at their top mark and look at sets, and then pull down this more, and you can click at any set, and it'll show you the amount of cards times this card has been in a deck that has been submitted to one of the tappedout.net. What other sources? They use Tapped Out. I don't know if they use Goldfish, but they use a lot of different deck. I think they use Deckbox as a source too, but wherever they get their sources from to compile these lists, there's been 64,000 decks that have used Cyclonic Rift. So as you can see too, I just knew this was going to happen because it was the most played blue card, and when it bottomed out during Modern Masters 2017, it just had that nice steady tick up that has gone under the radar for most of the finance people, and is now sitting at a whopping $10. And you can even go over here to Card Kingdom's buy list. They've had this up at $750 at some point. They've been buying this at pretty good. Usually, if you're looking to just find a buy list, 50% is great to buy list. But they're paying a whopping $7 at Card Kingdom for a card like Cyclonic Rift. So there you go. In theory, if I wanted to make money on MTG Finance besides just manage a collection, if I would have got in at 2 to 250 to 3, now I could have an easy cash out date for Card Kingdom at $7 a pop. All right, enough of this ramble. But I've rambled and rambled for this introduction. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this video. So let's start off with the Aether or Kaladesh should be the latest set. So Kaladesh has some really good ones. In fact, I want to do a top 10 list of cards that I think you should be speccing into for the Commander format, and the number one was definitely from Kaladesh. So if we scroll down here from the number one Commanders use, this is actually quite significant for Rashmi. Rashmi is actually really, really cheap, and that's not the card I'm talking about, by the way. But Rashmi, this is a perfect card to be picking up for the future. It finally went down to $1. It seems to be going up. I don't know if this is Brawl that's really leading this charge of if people are actually using it. Using her in Brawl, or if it's just Commander finally starting to outstretch the supply. This is typical what you see happen with the Commander cards. They get released, they really get hammered here during their draft period, and then they stabilize out when sometimes they'll actually go up at the releases because the Commander players want the cards. Then they get hammered when the drafters start opening up and they don't see standard play, and then they finally go down and down and down for about a year or 2 years, and then even at this point, the Commander can start to outstretch the supply, and it seems that's what's happening with Rashmi. Rashmi has finally peaked out at early March and has now gone up a nice little chunk from 90 cents to $1.30. So anyway, hope that's a little more explanation with what we're trying to get here. But the card that I really, really like here is Inventor's Fair. I think Inventor's Fair is the perfect card for an investment. In fact, this card has gone clear up in value in just recent weeks. I think it's because it's seeing a lot more play in Modern. So this is the double dippers are the best. Cyclonic Rift is kind of a double dipper because you do see Cyclonic Rift every now and again in Modern. It's been played in Bluetron, but usually it's only one of. So that's not nearly enough of a demand to really spike a card, but it's a nice demand to add to the already demand that Commander has. If we look at the Inventor's Fair, though, it does see some play in Modern in the Crackland Ironworks decks. It does see play with Lantern Controls, even some Prison decks, and some Legacy decks in the past have used the Inventor's Fair. Inventor's Fair, you can see it. I wonder if it peaked out around the March time as well. Yeah, it seems that March it started going up in value quite a bit, so it seems like Kaladesh is old enough that new players have started to, maybe people are right, that Dominaria has just really brought a lot more people back in to the fold, and we've seen a massive price increase. In fact, this has actually run away. I was going to do this video a couple weeks ago, and it's already gone up about 50 cents since I wanted to do this video. So if you haven't picked up your Inventor's Fair, this was a card that I was targeting quite often for Cards Fair. I don't know how many bites I got, but I remember I was picking this up for 50 cents a pop around this time period, a long time around this time period. So this is kind of my strategy. When it's not in demand, that's when I put it up for 50% on Cards Fair and just slowly allow them to come in. I've been targeting SRAM lately for that. I was targeting SRAM just because I thought there'd be a little more of an aura feel from Dominaria. I still think there'll be more of an aura feel from the next set coming out to kind of pair with the Dominaria aura little sub theme that's got going on. So we'd have to wait for that to see if that actually does end up happening. However, let's get back to Inventor's Fair. Inventor's Fair, if we go back to the Kaladesh, is played in a whopping 12,682 decks. It isn't the number one in the set. It's Panharmonicon, which is another card that has finally found its low and has actually seen some standard play at some period of time. There's some modern players every now and again. We'll try to chuck this in a deck. But that is a fair amount of decks that this card has been going into, is 12,682. What I really like about Inventor's Fair is it's so flexible. It goes in any deck that wants to use artifacts, and that is Commander in a nutshell. A lot of people use a lot of rocks. Once you get 3 or more artifacts, you start gaining 1 life per turn, and once you have 4 artifacts, you can sacrifice your Inventor's Fair to fetch up any artifact. Actually, you can do that if you have 3 or more. Yep, never mind, it's just 3 or more. You can basically use your land to tutor. So it's a land that has utility attached to it, which is exactly what Commander players like. The legendary land doesn't matter because everything in the format is you can only have one of them to begin with, so you don't have to worry about this being stuck in your hand because you already have one out. Kaladesh is just packed full of cards that I do like for Commander. We also see the Aether Reservoir, which is another card that I've been picking up at 50 cents a piece, and I've had a lot of these sold to me on Cards Fair. So the Aether Flux. Did I spell something wrong? Floods. Let's go back here. The Aether Flux. A-E-T-H-E-R. Why is it A-E-T-H-E? Oh, there's my R. There we go. Aether Flux Reservoir. This is another card. Yeah, it does seem to be ticking back up, and this is, if anyone's ever played this in Commander, you know how degenerate this card can get out of control. In Brawl, it's my favorite win con. For Italy, it actually is my win con in Italy Brawl, is the Aether Flux Reservoir, and I also use it in another Brawl deck, the Firesong and Sunspeaker. So there are plenty of decks that can abuse this in Commander, especially because you start at the 40 life total, and basically once you get up to the 50, no one can really mess with you because at instant speed you can, in response, kill them. So it's a good way to actually counter a spell by killing a player by taking them off the stack. But anyway, this is a card that is starting to see nice little tick up here because the Commander players have finally started out to stretch the supply, and the demand is starting to tick up the price. You can see that Card Kingdom is paying a whopping $1 for Aether Flux Reservoir, so that's a good sign. If you want to get ahead of a lot of trends, this is a good place to go. Card Kingdom seems to have the most aggressive buy list out of the buy listers, and yeah, this means that this is going to go up a lot because people are already going to start selling their copies to Card Kingdom, and Card Kingdom already has them up for $2. So they've already increased the price on their website that they're selling them. If we go over to Panharmonicon, I think we can see some stabilization in this card, as well as starting to see it start to go up. Yeah, it does tend to be the first of the year these cards start to go up. It's starting to go back down slightly, but we should see some price correction here as it will start going back up again, as this doesn't see much, if any, play in Standard, unless you're Saffron Olive, then he'll play it all the time. But yep, Casual Appeal and Commander Appeal definitely will drive this back up. So Kaladesh also, like I said, has some other goodies. The Fumigate and the Authority of Consuls have seemed to be very, very good cards in Commander, because not only does Destroy effect's very popular, this one gains you a life. The Authority of Consuls is very tough for your opponent's creatures because they come into play tapped, so it takes away the haste aspect of a lot of commanders. And you can even go down the list. I don't like to go too far down. These are the type of cards I like to focus on, as I find some that I feel are undervalued, like the Aether Flux Reservoir and the Inventor's Fair, and really spec on those. But this is very interesting, the Insidious Will at a bulk rare, and it does see a decent amount of play. So it's about 40% of what the Inventor's Fair is being played at. So the price should reflect that because it's a very versatile counterspell. You can counterspell or choose new targets for a spell or copy an instant sorcery spell. So it can go in a lot of versatile decks and still be a good inclusion. So I'd keep my eye on Insidious Will. I think it's a card that is destined to go up. If we come over here and look at its price trajectory, I wonder if we see any sort of movement at all. If it is starting to go up, and that actually looks pretty good to me. I know it's very, very flat here, but you can see that the slant is actually going upwards, even clear back to here. So I wouldn't even consider this a bulk rare. Card Kingdom does have it as a bulk rare. They probably have plenty in stock, which they do. They have their 8 of. I'm corrected by a subscriber. This isn't always true, but it seems like they only put 8 ofs now in their available for a lot of rares, so they don't get so they're not as susceptible to a buyout. And then I bet they have some sort of software that then increases the price, restocks and increases the price after 8 are sold in a time period. So Insidious Will, 25 cents is even kind of a bargain there from like the Card Kingdoms, because I do think this card will go up. Noxious Gearhulks tend to be pretty popular in Commanders. Planeswalkers do tend to find their way. The fast lands a lot of times aren't the premier lands to use in Commander, but cards like Botanical Sanctum I've had in the multiple. I actually have it in all my blue-green decks because I do like fast mana in most of those. But Animar, of course, it's one of the key cards for having Animar out on turn 3 or even turn 2, as it has the 1 mana for the mana dork and then allows Animar to come out to pay for the blue on the next one. So anyway, there's a lot of goodies if you scroll down this list. I would consider anything above. Yeah, see this is a card that I've been separating from my bulk, this Dramatic Reversal, because it does see a lot of, a fair amount of play in Commander, and you can also see that these cards that are very undervalued at the moment also see a substantial amount of play in Commander. So there is Kaladesh. Let's go on to Aether Revolt. See, Kaladesh is old enough. Let's see how Aether Revolt is if it's starting to move prices. I was very surprised that Disallow sees this amount of play other than a counter target spell or activated ability or triggered ability. That's very versatile. We all know about the Paradox Engine. I was surprised to see the price of Paradox Engine go up as much as it had. At first, I thought it might have been speculation on Dominaria with Gilded Lotus, but then we see that it's way before that. Just had this beautiful increase in price. It bottomed out here at $6 and has already gone up to $15. There's not any card that I can even think of that sees play that much in Modern that is done similar. Maybe we can make the Walking Ballista, but this is a Commander card that has just completely gone under the radar, that has had that double up, almost triple up at this point. All right, so back to Aether Revolt. We have the Rishkar's Expertise. This is as bulky as bulk gets. This is a card I highly think people should start picking up, because the green decks, this is their go-to draw for a lot of the commanders that get a big creature. I'm pretty sure that Rishkar has been having a huge uptick because it goes in. Oh, really? Yeah, Gishoth. I think that most of the Gishoths, but that's only 195 out of the decks it has been included in. Yidris and Omnoth. I'm sure maybe Gitrog Monster. Maybe Gitrog Monster doesn't care about it because it has other ways to draw. But all these big, more stomp type green commanders absolutely love Rishkar's Expertise, as it does what the green players want it to do. It ramps you, well, not really ramps you, I mean draws you cards as well as allows you to cast that. So it's almost like a free card that turn, because then you can cast something for 5. So it doesn't feel like you've wasted your draw. You can still go Rishkar's Expertise and whatever else you're doing. Lifecrafter's Bestiary. This card should see some price adjustments because it was included in a box set. I believe it was in the green-black Constrictor deck for the Challengers decks. So Lifeblood, not Lifeblood. What was this thing called? It was called the Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Lifecrafters. So a little food for thought too. If you have access to Challenger decks, if you're seeing anyone really sell the especially the green-black Constrictor deck for lower, the Walking Ballista itself will pay for the deck, or almost pay for the deck. Walking Ballista has gone up incredibly in the past few weeks just because it sees the most play out of any card in Standard at the moment. So anyway, you can see this Lifecrafter's Bestiary. It was spoiled here in the Challenger decks, went down, and it seems to be stabilizing back up and going back up. That's pretty crazy, an Aether Revolt card. can start to go up in value. A little bit of a warning about this. It does see some standard play, so I think you can actually start to get these later on once standard does rotate out and the standard players throw their cards back on the market. So this is kind of you never really want to invest in the cards that are in standard and are rotating that do not see modern play, because they will have a huge sell-off after rotation and into the market. So this is something after rotation, 2 months after, you should be putting on cards for super cheap. We're talking about 25 cents, and you'll get standard players send it to you. All right, so back on Aether Revolt, Heroic Intervention has been sneaking up like crazy. It might have a little bit of an effect like Lifecrafter's Bestiary as the standard players get out of it, but this one's a lot of us already missed the boat. The thing is about a Heroic Intervention, I was sending these off at $4 all day long because I thought, rotation will get these back, but man, it looks like this card is gone. Borrow Chief of Compliance is another card that I think will continue to go up in value as it plays in Storm, and it sees a lot of play even in when it's not banned in 1 versus 1 Commander. I think it's actually banned in all the formats for 1 versus 1, but it does see a lot of play in Commander at the moment at 5,000 decks. Yahini, this is another card that's been ticking up because of Commander, and the War of Invention, this is another card you should have on your list of cards you should be finding in bulk bins and getting trades, because it does see a considerable amount of play in the Commander format as well as in Modern. Of course, Metallic Mimic, I was actually surprised at how little cards or decks that Metallic Mimic has actually gone in, because this seems to be a very easy card just to put in any tribal Commander deck, which is a huge theme of Commander. Planar Bridge, Shram, and going down the list, there are a lot of good little cards here that can be I think successfully spec'd into for the Commander format. Again, you don't want to go too far down the list because it will take the least amount of decks these are played in means the slower that the Commander is going to outstress the supply, and then you're susceptible to reprints and things like that at that point. So you want to really target the ones that are seeing a lot of play. Or another good strategy is to look at the Commanders that are coming out in August. You get ahead of the spoilers and find any cards that actually do go up do go in those decks. I think Yahini actually is really working off of it was something that you probably do want to put in your Vampire, in your Markov deck, or Edgar Markov deck, because it is a Vampire that gets big, has haste, and can actually give itself indestructible to avoid board wipes. And yeah, there's a lot of decks that are based around it. I've seen this played as a successful Commander as well. Trophy Mage is a card in foil that I think is a very, very smart speculation, as I think this foil is still really, really cheap. I do know that it's a game day promo as well, but if we look at just the Trophy Mage foil, $1.39, it still doesn't seem like it's found its bottom, but you can see that this does see a ton of play in a lot of Commander decks, and I think it's a pretty good, decent little spec for that. So that's a strategy you can do for all of these like commons, is instead of targeting their common version, you go and just find the foil version. So I mean, a lot of times you don't want to be speccing into a Trophy Mage for Commander. It will take so many years for this to go up, and it'll probably get reprinted by that point. But the foils will be outstretched very, very quickly, so you can go down and go like Felidar Guardian. Is Felidar Guardian's foil worth anything? It could still have some like price memory from when it was in Standard. $4 is the foil on the Felidar Guardian, so that's probably not the best little pickup there. But if we go down here and see Treasure Keeper, there's a good one. So Treasure Keeper in foil, even though no, this was in Masters already. Jeez. This would have been a good one if it was in the Master set. You could make the justification for buying in this 40-cent one, because 1,287 decks is pretty decent in my opinion. All right, so that's Aether Revolt. Let's go on to the Amonkhet. Amonkhet is another set that I think has a lot of cards that you should keep your eye on. All of these Scatter Grows, Irrigated Farmlands, Canyon Slow, those type of cards are something that can be fetched up. And so fetch lands, I want the rules to be changed in Commander, but I don't know if a lot of people agree with me that off-color fetch lands should not be allowed in decks that, their color identity should be based upon the lands they can go grab. However, since they don't have that any color identity, they're illegal in any Commander deck, so a lot of people just run. Basically, if it can go fetch up one of your card types, you'll play every version of it for every version of fetches that can go grab that one of your land types. So anyway, the cycling lands have the dual land type, and so they can be fetched up. A lot of times Commander players don't care if they come into play untapped if they're fetching them up, and you can cycle them away, which is really, really powerful in a slower format like Commander. So keep your eyes on these. If they go too low, I know that Fetid Pool, and yeah, the Fetid Pool is really the one that's only expensive though. If you look down here at the Irrigated Farmlands, like kind of slow, and even the Sheltered Thickets, they're very, very low and in price wise, and they probably should go even lower after they rotate out of Standard. The Cascading Cataracts is another card that I'm keeping my eye on, because this is a card that is indestructible. So if anyone's ever played against like a land destruction commander deck, this is a card that can get around it. Also, you can play in your own land destruction decks, and that allows you to have a land after you wipe the board that way. Of course, Anointed Processions is already a card that's gone up in value. This card could go down after rotation, and that'd be a good time to get in on it. But this is the card, this is a perfect one, for example, is Pull from Tomorrow. That is, if you compare it to Anointed Processions, just took Commander by storm. It's basically in any white deck that uses tokens, it gets a shoot in. But Pull from Tomorrow is seeing a lot of play in Commander in those blue draw decks, in those even Cyclonic Rift decks. Most blue decks can justify throwing this card in their deck. I think it does a better job of, I mean, it's the exact same card advantage of something like Blue Sun Zenith. Because if you take away the discard aspect of it, it's the, Blue Sun Zenith is 3 in X. This is 2 in X, so you spend that last to draw the same amount of cards and have to discard one. And at that point, you don't care if you have to get rid of a land at that point. So Pull from Tomorrow, I think is destined to go up in value. We have cards like the Vizier, the Menagerie, and the As Foretold that also see a significant amount of play. As Foretold does see Modern at the moment. This could go down if it doesn't see a permanent home in Modern, and just for that reason, it should be a card that you should keep your eye on. Vizier, the Menagerie is just a powerhouse in a lot of Commander decks. I run it in many of my green Commander decks. Animar, Momor Vig, to name a two that I really like the Vizier or tutor up very quickly, because it just goes through your deck like crazy. Then you can even go down the list here. A card like Harvest Season, really, really bulk, but over 2,000 decks already. That's not too shabby. That is a card that I would not bulk out. If you have your collection, I'd keep that to the side. And I think this is destined to go up to like $1 card within a year, $1.50 within 2 years type thing, and just slowly increase in value. All right, not too much besides that, beyond that with the Amonkhet. It's worthwhile to keep your eyes on these numbers. If anything changes quickly, like even the orders are good to keep track of, because if one leapfrogs another, something's going on. So last but not least, we have the Hour of Devastation, which is kind of a special set in my opinion, just because of how little this set was opened. Yes, there was a key card in the set, the Warped Standard, the Scarab God, so people did open up packs for that. But if rumors are true, Hour of Devastation was the least sold set since, I believe, this is since Ravnica forward. This is the set that has sold the least. This was a huge downturn in Magic. A lot of people quote the 35% decrease in Magic players. Standard was kind of dead during this time period. A lot of people just didn't care for Magic. It was that was kind of when Arena was announced, but it wasn't out, or this was just not a good period for Magic the Gathering, and I think it reflected it in pack sales. So there are a lot of cards that are very undervalued. Razaketh has already snuck up on us. I think Razaketh at one point got all the way down to a $2 Mythic? I wonder how low, $3.30 Mythic, and you can already see that it's starting to have that increase. This sees absolutely zero play. It does say play in a Modern deck, huh? Does they have this? They don't have this in Goryo's. Okay, Goryo's can go tutor up a card after that. But anyway, we have a really goodie here in Razaketh, because it does go in a lot of Reanimation Black cards. But it's these three amigos right here that you should definitely focus on. I love these cards. Rabbit Up Excavator, not as much as the other two, because this was a promo. This was like I believe a release day promo, or a welcome, or a Magic Game Day promo, or not Game Day. It was like, what do they call the open house? It might have been an open house promo, or there was a release. There's a lot of these Rabbit Up Excavators in the alternate foil running around. So keep that in mind about Rabbit Up Excavator. However, Torment of Hailfire and Mirage Mirror, these see an incredible amount of play in Commander. I definitely think that if you haven't picked up many of these, you should, because Tournament of Hailfire is basically a shoe-in of every black deck. It is the premier finisher in a lot of Commander decks. It's my premier finisher in Noth. I'm trying to think what other decks that I run in Commander. It's very good in Brawl, and it does see some play in Standard at the moment, so you could see people selling it off at rotation, but I don't think there's enough there that is really affecting the price of Tournament of Hailfire. This is all coming from Commander. So besides Inventor's Fair, this is probably my second favorite pick. I know that it's the price is already a little bit higher than where you usually want to get in on cards. If you could, of course, got in during the bottom out, this is why it's important to be looking at these cards after their draft, as this one actually bottomed out. Went up after its pre-sale price and then went back down to about $2.50. And so I still think that $4 is pretty cheap for a Tournament of Hailfire that sees this amount of play. And this is what I'm talking about. You shouldn't really compare numbers. The only time you compare numbers is within the set. You don't want to go outside the set. So you don't want to be like comparing Tournament of Hailfire to over here to Return to Ravnica and saying, okay, what has 3,000 cards from Return to Ravnica? Oh, this is just as popular as Celestia Charm. I don't remember seeing a lot of Celestia Charm decks, for example. It sees a ton of play in Commander for those black decks finishing it. Mirage Mirror, same thing. You can do some stupid stuff with Mirage Mirror. It just becomes the best artifact, creature, enchantment on the battlefield at any given time. Going down this list too, there are also some goodies. Hour of Revelation is a card I've been picking up quite extensively because of it's a 6-mana board wipe. It board wipes every non-land permanent for 6 mana that costs 3 less if there are 10 or more permanents on the battlefield. That's insanely easy to do in Commander. So it's a very, very premier removal spell at the moment. And you can even look at like the Nahab and Locust God, see a lot of play. But Hour of Promise, I think, is a card that is going to this is really low for me. This is a deck that is almost an auto-include in every green deck that I play because of the utility of searching up 2 lands. It's not just basic lands, and I think people need to be educated on that. Especially if you're green-black, Hour of Promise allows you to get the Urborg, Tubi, Yawgmoth, Cobblecoffers combo into play and then have an insane amount of mana from then on out. There's also Swarm Intelligence that I think is a really, really good pickup at right now at bulk rare price, because you can see that it sees a lot of play in respectively in blue decks, and I think it's a really powerful card. Whenever it casts an resource spell, you copy it, and then you can even go down to cards like Sleminate, Hour of Devastation, the Scarab God. So I'm not going to get into too much of Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan at the moment. The Sunbird Invocation is a good one. Let's just check it out very, very quickly here for the Rivals and regular Ixalan. So of course, Growing Rights, Vanquisher's Banner. I still think these will go down slightly. Looks like Card King. Wow, Card King is charging $8 for Growing Rights. So that seems pretty high. The Compass, but Sunbird's Invocation would be definitely my pick from Ixalan. I think this is a shoe-in of most red decks, because one of the things that red does have an issue with in Commander is drawing cards, and Sunbird Invocation becomes like a pseudo draw. Being able to cast through your library. You cast a card and then be able to cast a card off of it. It gives a lot of reach to your red decks. A lot of times you burn out with red really quickly, and it's hard to come back compared to, like, we just saw like Rishkar's Expertise out of green, or blue has a ton of ways to draw spells. Black and white can usually use their resources to draw. Red has a tough time with it, so cards like Sunbird Invocation are very important for red decks. So this is the card that I've been targeting from Ixalan, and then from Rivals of Ixalan, there is a really good one out of red as well that is going to sneak up on people, and this is the Silverclad Ferocidon. I think that this is a pretty decent little ability for red. Whenever Silverclad Ferocidon is dealt damage, each opponent sacrifices a permanent. We all know how popular like cards like Stuffy Doll get in Commander, and I think this is one of those type of cards. But you can also check this list for another land, the Arch of Araska, which I think is going to be adopted more and more in Commander decks. The Wayward Swordtooth is still pretty low at the moment. Again, these are going to be card Kingdom prices. They're not going to be accurate whatsoever. The Journey into Eternity is going to be a lot less. And these are cards you should keep your eye on for the future. But they're not rotating anytime soon. They still have some time to either flatten out, or they probably are, for the Commander cards have stopped their decrease because it's not being drafted as much. The packs aren't being cracked as much, and none are getting injected into the supply. But they're not as priority as I would say as the cards that are kind of in the rotation where no one's really looking at, that are already started to see outstretched, especially Aether Revolt and Kaladesh. So anyway, that's my topic for Market Monday. Barely got it in on time. Market Tuesday for some of you, but Market Monday for the rest of us. If you have any specs from these particular sets, the sets that are rotating out, if I miss a glaring one, be sure to comment in the comment section below. Also, Commander, and I believe the anthology is coming out in May? No, June? I can't remember what's coming out, but there is going to be a reprint of Commander, and then we're going to start seeing spoilers in July, I believe for July, August, or early August for when they release their Commander 2018 sets. And remember to get ahead of that. If there aren't any sort of synergies, I need to do a better job of that too with Dominaria. Saplings was just a duh. We saw it with Apatra when Apatra made -1/-1 counters relevant. All of those cards went skyrocketing. And now we're seeing the Slimefoot spike the value of a ton of sapling based cards. So I think there's still some goodies out of Dominaria. There are so many legendary creatures out of Dominaria. Eventually people are going to start to build commanders out of those particular cards. So any cards that work with them, you can come over here to like go over to Dominaria, click on any of these top commanders, like cards that go in Joda or Muldrotha or Slimefoot or Jora. These will inevitably start to outstretch the supply as well. So keep that in mind. Hope you enjoyed this Market Monday. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.